out all your workers because it's time to build an Architects of the West Kingdom. Welcome back to the Board Game Closet. My name's Jimmy, and today I'm doing a Kickstarter preview for Architects of the West Kingdom, and I'm pretty excited to talk about this one. Now, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, click the button and subscribe, and we give you reviews and previews of awesome games that you could buy or back on Kickstarter. And today, we're talking about one that's on Kickstarter right now, Architects of the West Kingdom. Now, you gotta know, going into this whole preview that I'm doing, that I absolutely love another game by Shem Phillips called Raiders of the North Sea. And I did some video reviews on that one and the expansions, and it is probably my most played, probably my favorite game that I've got. I just love everything about that game. I love the card play, the worker interactions, I love the replayability. It's all there for me, and it's gotten to the table a bunch. So when I heard about Architects of the West Kingdom, I was pretty excited to be able to check it out because this one offers a new twist on the worker placement idea. So the question will be, how does it climb the mountain, and can it overtake my favorite spot with Raiders of the North Sea? I don't know. We'll check it out. In Architects of the West Kingdom, you are placing workers across the kingdom to try to gather resources so that you can build buildings. And you do that throughout the game. There are no rounds to the game. You just take turns placing workers, getting resources, building buildings, helping build the cathedral, and continuing until the end of the game is triggered. Now, what's unique about this one is in most worker placement games, you have a few workers that you start the game with, and then as the game progresses, you might get a few more. And so at the end of the game, you're able to do a whole lot more than what you could do at the beginning of the game. Well, this game is actually a little different in that they give you all 20 of your workers at the beginning. And then as the game progresses, as you build buildings and help construct the cathedral, you're actually going to lose workers. And so you don't have as many. And so it almost gives this feeling that the game is getting tighter as the game progresses because maybe you can't do as much as you could at the beginning. And then another twist that they added to the game is when you place a worker out onto the board, they stay there, and then when you come back later with another worker to that same location, the benefit gets better. So for instance, if I came here to the quarry, the first time I went, I would just get 1 stone. But if I return later on with a second worker, now I'm going to get 2 stone. And third turn, fourth turn, fifth turn, I could start to get a stone machine going for me over there, and I could get a lot of resources. And that's basically the main premise of the game, is that every location on the board can kind of change depending on the number of workers that you have in that location. Now, there is a way to bring your workers back to you or take workers from someone else, which, to be totally honest, I was kind of hesitant about that when I heard of that aspect of the game, but it totally works out, and my worries were unfounded. Because in the game, if you ever send someone to the town center, you pay a coin, and you are able to take workers from one location, whether that's your own or someone else's. If it's someone else's, they go to your board, and now they're kind of captured with you for a second. And then on a later round, if you send a worker to the guardhouse, you can now exchange these guys. Basically, you get a bounty. And so I would get some money for sending those guys to the guardhouse. And then if you're the green guy and you wanted to get your workers out, you send one of your green dudes over here and you can release your people from prison by paying the ransom, I guess. So at the beginning, I was kind of leery about that idea of how's that going to work with people taking my workers, and then am I not going to be able to do anything? Well, it's not that big of a deal because a couple things. In order to take someone's workers, you have to place someone at the town center, and then you have to pay money to do that. Secondly, they're only going to come to their board temporarily, and then they get to come to theirs. So in order for someone to take your workers, they actually have to take 2 turns to do that. And so it's not always the most optimal way to go about something, but it is a way, and it is part of the game, and it kind of balances things out, because if I had loaded up on the quarry and I had like 6 or 7 guys over there, someone's going to stop me from doing that. So it kind of gives this feeling of, during the game, you need to be careful with where you send your workers, because if you get too greedy, someone's going to capitalize on that and send your workers to jail. So I really, really like that, and I thought that it balanced out, especially especially with more people, the more people that play, it really adds to this feeling of there's a whole lot going on, and so you're looking at who's where in the game. Now, how do you build buildings? Because that's the main aspect of the game. That's how you're going to actually score points. You get these buildings, and then they have victory points that are on them, so at the end of the game, you're going to be adding up the victory points off of the buildings that you've built. So you build these by having the resources required. Like to build this university, I need 4 brick, 2 wood, 3 stone, and 2 marble. So if I have those resources, I'm good to go. But then I also need apprentices to help me build it. So these are requirements in order to build this building of not only just resources, but also people that you need to help you build the building. So I would have to go to the workshop. I'd have to pay 4 money to do that. And then I'm able to hire one of these workers depending on the level of workers that I have placed out there. So if I only have 1 dude, I can only hire from the first column. 2 dudes, I can hire from the first 2 columns, or 3 workers, 3 ladies, whatever, however far out, that's how many workers that I can, the level of apprentices that I can recruit. And so I would get this person, I would add them to my stack here now, and this trader might be able to help me build the university later on. Another aspect to the game is the King's Storehouse, and this is a location that I can send a worker, and for every worker that I have at this location, I can make an exchange. So like I can take any combination of 3 wood or 3 stone or a mixture, and I can get 1 marble. So marble is a resource in the game that you can only get through trade, and so that's pretty cool. And then you can also go up and down the virtue track, which is a whole nother way to score points in the game, and it's this push and pull kind of balance as you try to figure out how virtuous of a person you want to be. And so you've got the virtue track over here, and there are some things that you do in the game, whether that's collect money from the tax stand or hire certain kinds of workers or get someone out of jail for free, whatever it is, visiting the black market to get resources really easily. There are a number of things that you can do that can send you down the virtue track. And so the further down you go, you're going to end up losing victory points, and it's going to stop you from being able to build on the cathedral. The cathedral is another victory point track that you could help build. And so there are different levels on the cathedral. You pay the cost and you discard a building card that you haven't built yet, and then you're able to go up this track with ultimately there's only 1 position at the very top where you could score 20 points. And so if you get to the top first, no one else can get that. And so that's pretty cool. It's a difference of about 8 points if you're the first person to get there. And so that's really pretty much the game. You're going to be taking turns, placing your workers out. It flies around the table, getting resources, hiring apprentices to build these buildings. And then there are special abilities along the way. If you play with a variant, each character could have their own special ability that they only can do. And then each one of these apprentices might give you an ability at certain locations on the board. So this says at the tax stand, you're also going to get a gold. So every time you come over here and take money from the tax stand, you get a gold. And so each one of these apprentices give you a different ability depending on where you're going on the board, and it can kind of help your strategy along the way. There is tax in the game, and so there's numbers of locations throughout the board where if you have to pay money, maybe the first or the second coin that you pay goes to the tax stand, and this becomes very tempting throughout the game, and you kind of have to plan on when you think you're going to go, because if you go to the tax stand, you're going to lose 2 virtue, you're going to go down the virtue track, but then you get to take all of the money from the tax stand and bring it to your table. And money in the game is kind of interesting because there's many times where I felt like I had tons of it, and then it felt like it disappeared really quickly too. So money's this ebb and flow kind of thing throughout the game where you're going to need it, so you're going to have some guys at the silversmith, or maybe you go the unvirtuous way and head to the tax stand. Now the game has some interesting mechanics in it with the placing of the workers, because like let's say that I ended up wanting to get a lot of stone, a couple at the mines, a couple at the silversmith. At some point in the game, all of your workers are going to be placed out there, and you're going to be left with 1 single worker. And so you send your lady out to the town center, and then you say, okay, I need to bring some people back. And so then you have to retrieve workers from locations on the board, and now basically you start your engine over again. And so now you start to say, okay, I don't really need these resources anymore, so now I'm going to start to go this direction instead and hire an apprentice that's further on, or I'm going to come over here and start to build up my King's Storehouse so I can start to build up my virtue again because the game is ending and I don't want to be down at the bottom. And so there's a number of places that you go in the game because of how that works with all of your workers being out, having to get them back in and then send them out again. It makes for some kind of pacing in the game that's interesting. Now, one of the things that I feel like they really did a good job at in timing the game is they have a guild hall over here. Anytime that you build a building, or anytime that you help construct the cathedral, you're going to place one of your workers in the guild hall and they stay there for the rest of the game. So this is how it tightens up. And this is how at the beginning you have 20 workers and at the end you might not have 20 workers, or you won't have 20 workers. And so it does two things. It tightens the game up, but then it also creates a timer, because as soon as this is full, the game goes one more round, that's it. And so it forces the game to continue on, because you get points by building buildings, you get points by building the cathedral, and so that forces the end of the game to happen. So there's not really any way to drag out the end of the game, because there's only so far you can go up on the virtue track. There's only so much that you can do in the game, but the way to score the victory points is causing you to get rid of your workers, pushes the game to the end. And I really like that. I thought that it was a smart way to make sure that the game stays within a certain time frame. The game comes with ways to play it solo. The game comes with a deck of cards where you can add in a third player if you're playing in a two-player game. And the options and the strategies of this game really open up with the more people that you have at the table. So I really liked it. Overall, I don't know yet if it's going to overtake Raiders, but I'm pretty excited to be able to check it out, because this is a game that I laid in bed that same night and I thought, I wonder why this is like this, and I wonder if I did that, how I could do this better. And so it definitely got me thinking, if you like Raiders of the North Sea, then I think this has to be on your game shelf. There is room for it at the table. It's not the same game. It feels great. It feels like they put a lot of good work into it, and I can't wait to personally back this Kickstarter. So there you go. Check it out. It's Architects of the West Kingdom.